They pointed and laughed. Right before the screaming started, Sergeant Nara Voss of the Galactic Vanguard doubled over in mirth, wheezing through her gill vents as she slapped her armored thigh. "By the stars, is that your armor?" she snorted, jabbing a claw at the human in front of her. "What, did you forget the rest of it back in your cave?" Private First Class Gabriel Ruiz stood motionless, dark-tinted visor hiding any hint of reaction. His suit wasn't sleek like the alien tech. It wasn't chromed, modular, or beautifully filigreed. It looked like something a deep-sea welder might have cobbled together during a panic attack. Charcoal plating, uneven bulk, exposed hydraulic cables at the joints, and thick armor that hissed with internal pressure. Voss wasn't alone. All 12 members of Strike Unit Carinth were laughing now. Shimmering scales, furred jaws, and ridged carapaces all quivering with amusement. They were the elite of the Galactic Union's expeditionary force. Genetically refined, battle-tested, cybernetically enhanced. And not a single one took the lone Terran seriously. Major Threx, the unit commander, a hulking Rixari with 6 eyes and a voice like rolling thunder, chimed in. "You humans. Always compensating. Do you think you'll even move in that coffin you wear? Let alone fight." Gabriel still didn't speak. He shifted slightly, just enough to cause his boots to thump against the ferrocrete, the sound echoing like a distant drumbeat. His internal HUD ticked through the remaining seconds of the mission clock. They were only 10 minutes from insertion into the Shardspire complex, a black site held by the Volix Dominion, buried in the ice canyons of Zetavarn. They weren't supposed to need him. That was the part that made him nervous. The Union had only called Earth for a consulting specialist, after 2 full squads went dark. Ruiz, a hardened veteran of Earth's border wars, was the only one available for immediate deployment. They gave him 20 minutes of briefing, dropped him into orbit, and told him to stay out of the Union soldiers' way. 10 minutes later, they were on a gunship, descending into the storm-racked canyons of a frozen alien hell. "Attention, strike team," the pilot's voice crackled over comms. "Landing zone is hot. Repeat, LZ is hot. Prepare for rapid evac in 30. Threx rose to full height and snapped his command staff forward. "Helms locked. Safety's off. Let's show these Dominion scum what elite Union steel looks like." The soldiers roared. Pulse rifles snapped to ready. Integrated combat AI began chirping telemetry and kill markers. The gunship doors yawned open, revealing a landscape out of nightmares. Jagged ice cliffs under a darkened sky, where blue lightning cracked between frozen peaks. Gabriel stepped out last. The wind howled against his armor, but he felt none of it. His helmet sealed pressure tight, a full 3 inches of carbon weave plating shielding every vital. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't fast. But it was built to survive. The moment they breached the perimeter, the air changed. Voss laughed again. "Where's the resistance?" "Your intel was." The cliff exploded. A directed energy beam sliced through 3 members of the squad like they weren't even there. Shields flared, bodies vaporized, and what was left dropped screaming over the ledge. "Ambush!" Threx bellowed. Before anyone could respond, the sky filled with red. The Volix attack drones came in swarms, jagged things shaped like knives, buzzing through the storm at supersonic speeds. Their plasma bursts tore into the squad's forward line, rupturing shields and burning holes in armor that was supposed to resist tank fire. Voss screamed, her leg disintegrating beneath her. Her armor locked and spasmed as her backup servo system failed, dropping her face first into the snow. Threx managed to drop 2 drones with precision fire, until a rail spike the size of a javelin punched through his chest plate and hurled him backward 10 feet. He didn't get up. In less than 30 seconds, the elite Union squad was reduced to chaos and screaming. Gabriel moved. Slowly. Deliberately. 1 heavy step at a time. The drones registered him. Too late. Their targeting systems relied on heat differentials and EM emissions. Gabriel's suit was a closed system, shielded, muffled, running on short-burst power cells and cooled to near-environmental temperature. His signature didn't show up until he was within 20 meters. And by then, he was already firing. His weapon wasn't sleek or smart. It was a mass driver, an ugly ancient thing designed by Terrans who didn't trust fancy energy weapons. It used kinetic force and stupid amounts of power. Every round it fired was a tungsten slug moving at Mach 7. The recoil alone would have shattered most humanoid limbs. Gabriel's first shot vaporized a drone in a mist of red and black. The second tore through a Volix gunner half buried in snow, pulping 3 others hiding behind him. The rest tried to scatter. It didn't help. He wasn't fast. He didn't need to be. He was inevitable. The remaining squad members were crawling for cover, some dragging bleeding limbs, others just screaming. Who's still up? Voss coughed over comms, voice thick with panic. Gabriel didn't answer. He leapt down into the trench ahead, slammed into the icy floor with a crunch, and kept walking. The trench was filled with enemy troops, Volix fighters with crystalline armor, screeching in their insectoid tongue. They fired at point-blank range. The first burst hit him dead center. The second ricocheted. The third melted a layer of external plating, and still he moved forward. The enemies began to panic. He raised his mass driver and fired once, twice, 3 times. Heads exploded. Chitin cracked. Plasma rifles fell from twitching hands. By the time he emerged from the other end of the trench, 15 bodies lay behind him, the snow blackened and steaming. Mother of stars, someone whispered over the squad comms. He's not even human. But Gabriel was. Every inch of him. It was the armor that made the difference. Not just the plating or the cooling system or the ballistic resistors. It was the design philosophy. The Union made armor to optimize efficiency. Terrans made it to keep you breathing when everything goes to hell. He reached a forward bunker and paused, letting his HUD sweep through the wall. At least 12 more heat signatures, Volix soldiers, dug in. He didn't hesitate. He reached to his side, pulled the breacher charge from his harness, slapped it against the steel door, and ducked back. The detonation knocked the entire bunker off its footing. He entered the smoke cloud like a ghost, boots thudding against the vibrating metal, and killed everything inside in under 20 seconds. No flare. No mercy. Just survival. Back at the landing zone, Voss stared through the targeting lens of her cracked visor. Her blood was freezing in the snow, her breathing ragged. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. To those rounds. They hit him point blank. He's not even alive? Someone asked. Gabriel's voice finally crackled in over the shared comm line. Alive enough. A static burst, then silence. One of the surviving soldiers, Zalek, the youngest, let out a choked laugh. Stars help us. The Dominion woke up a death welder. The comm line filled with screams as another wave of drones descended from the cliffs above. Zalek didn't even try to fight. He braced for death. Instead, the sky behind him lit up red-hot with tracer fire, cutting through the swarm like a buzzsaw. The drones tried to veer, but couldn't outrun the mass driver's lock-on cycle. Seconds later, the cliff face behind them cracked. A massive figure emerged from a half-buried tunnel, the human again, now dragging something behind him. A Volix commander, impaled on a length of rebar. Its crystalline armor shattered, its limbs twitching, its eyes wide with shock. Gabriel tossed the corpse at the squad's feet. Recon complete, he said. You're welcome. Voss coughed up blood, blinking in disbelief. You went solo into a Dominion tunnel? Gabriel tilted his head. Didn't want to wait around while you were dying. But, the armor. It's not even tactical. It's just heavy. Gabriel finally stepped close enough for them to hear the servo motors hissing under strain. The metal was scorched, dented, gouged in 24 places. But it held. It's not armor, he said flatly. It's a coffin. I wear it so I'm the last thing the bastards see before they die. Before anyone could respond, An alert screamed across all channels. Warning. Dominion reinforcements incoming. Massive spike in thermal readings. Detected. Volix Hellburst Carrier Class Weapon. ETA. 180 seconds. Everyone froze. Hellburst. A plasma bombardment device capable of leveling 2 kilometers in every direction. There was nowhere to run. No cover that could survive. No weapon that could stop it. Unless... Gabriel turned toward the ridge, the wind howling louder now. He stared up into the lightning clouds, voice low. Prep evac. I'll handle the carrier. Voss stared at him in horror. That's suicide. Gabriel was already moving. Then I'll do it quickly. He started climbing the ice cliff alone. The storm screamed louder, and above, the Hellburst weapon began to glow. And then the line cut to static. The ice cliff groaned under Gabriel's weight, each metal boot punching into the frozen wall like a piston. The howling wind turned to a banshee scream as lightning cracked overhead, illuminating the silhouette of the Volix Hellburst carrier looming just beyond the ridge. 3 minutes. That's all he had before the weapon finished charging. 2 miles below, Strike Unit Carinth, what remained of it, watched from a ravaged ridge as their lone Terran began a suicidal climb toward a weapon no sane soldier would face head-on. Voss, half frozen and slumped against a broken rock, slammed her fist against a comlink. Come in. Ruiz, you have no chance of breaching that carrier. You're not fast enough. You're not shielded enough. I don't need to be fast, came Gabriel's voice, calm, steady. I just need to be close. Zarlek hovered nearby, shell cracked, shivering despite the temperature regulators in his suit. There has to be another way. We could call for bombardment, orbital strike, something. Voss shook her head grimly. The Hellburst generates an anti-targeting field. No guidance system would lock. Another comm beeped. One of the surviving medics, a long-limbed Lekari named Thal, spoke up as he tried to keep another trooper alive with makeshift trauma foam. You're telling me that armor can survive a direct Hellburst? Voss didn't answer. She didn't have to. It couldn't. Not even Terran armor. This wasn't a rescue mission. It was a death sentence. Gabriel's climb was mechanical. Deliberate. He didn't waste energy. His HUD was flashing red with warnings. External armor integrity down to 42%, 2 servos stalling, backup capacitors draining fast. He'd already vented 1 coolant reservoir, and his left pauldron was nearly sheared off. Didn't matter. None of it mattered. What mattered was the glowing pulse ahead of him. An unstable fusion reaction cycling to critical mass. Once the Hellburst fired, it would vaporize everything within a kilometer. The wounded. The ship. The survivors. The bodies. Gabriel wasn't going to let that happen. Not today. He reached the first ledge and rolled into cover just as a rail spike hissed past his head and buried itself into the ice behind him. A Volix sentry, 4-limbed and armored in black crystalline plates, emerged from behind a turret mound. It hissed in its native tongue and leveled its plasma lance. Gabriel pulled the trigger first. The slug struck the creature center mass, launching it back into the storm with a crunch. Another drone cluster shot out from behind the ridge, plasma bursts searing the snow. One glanced off Gabriel's helmet, jerking his head sideways. Internal systems screamed as sensors flickered and reoriented. He knelt, planted one hand into the snow, steadied, then let loose. Boom, boom, boom. 3 clean hits. 3 mangled corpses. Gabriel surged forward again. Inside the Hellburst carrier, Volix engineers shrieked commands, running final sequences. The fusion core was active. Its energy signature began to distort space around it. The snowflakes falling nearby melted mid-air. Metal glowed. Gravity warped. 2 minutes. Gabriel's boot crashed through the rear vent grate. He dropped inside. The interior was a nightmare of heat, noise, and vibrating metal. Dozens of Volix infantry turned at once, caught between confusion and disbelief. And there, at the heart of the room, a pulsing core bathed in red light, the Hellburst reactor. Gabriel activated his armor's overdrive. It screamed in protest. He ignored it. His HUD flashed warnings he couldn't even read anymore as adrenaline surged through him like a chemical hurricane. He charged. The first enemy struck him with a plasma glaive. The blade skipped across his right vambrace, partially melting through the armor before lodging in the servos. Gabriel snapped his elbow back, shattering the weapon, and the alien holding it. Two more lunged with neural disruptors. He barreled through them. Blood, if you could call that luminous blue ichor blood, splattered the walls. He reached the core's base. Set the charges. 30 seconds. He needed to buy 30 seconds for the others to escape. But something was wrong. The reactor hummed, off-key. The charge was too fast. Too unstable. His armor's AI finally broke through the interference. Warning. Fusion core reacting to charge placement. Detonation chain accelerating. Time to critical. 65 seconds. He froze. The charge didn't stabilize the reaction. It spiked it. His plan had just turned from suicide to planetary disaster. Outside, the survivors were scrambling. Voss screamed into the comm. Gabriel! The charge triggered a runaway loop. The core's unstable. You've got. He cut her off. I know. Zalek's voice was shaking. Then abort. Get out. No time. There was silence. The storm screamed louder now, as if the very sky could feel what was coming. Gabriel stared into the blinding red eye of the core. Then he did the only thing left. He yanked the explosive charge off the casing. It kept blinking. Manual detonation override activated. He locked it to his chest plate. Walked straight into the core housing chamber. His boots sizzled on the melting floor. Armor integrity at 12%, the suit whispered. He ignored it. Captain. Voss whispered. I'll contain it, Gabriel said. You can't. That's impossible. The pressure alone will. I'm not here to survive, he said. I'm here to make sure you do. The carrier walls began to collapse inward. The fusion pulse was at threshold. He jammed the charge into the central stabilizer ring. The core flared. He screamed. Not in pain. In defiance. He turned to face the core directly, knowing this was it. Knowing this was the end. And yet, he smiled. The detonation consumed him. The blast wave cracked the mountainside in two. The carrier atomized in a sphere of white fire and blue lightning, rupturing the very air in a kilometer radius. But the mountain held. And more importantly, the blast didn't spread. Somehow, it folded inward. Compressed. Contained. The survivors, shielded behind a fallen ice ridge, braced for annihilation. But the firestorm never reached them. Just light. And silence. And snow. The comms went dead. No signal from Gabriel. Nothing. Then, a dull thud. Then another. Then another. From the fire and ruin, a figure emerged. Charred. Broken. Staggering. A twisted husk of armor, blackened from head to toe, one arm missing entirely, helmet visor shattered, yet somehow impossibly alive. Gabriel dropped to one knee, smoke trailing off his back. Sparks flickered from his spine as his internal systems failed one by one. His voice was barely a whisper over the comms. Next time, someone else wears the coffin. Then he collapsed. The medic sprinted forward, swearing in half a dozen dialects as he poured emergency stabilizer into the exposed torso. His vitals are stars. He should be dead. He is dead. No, Voss said softly, limping forward. He's human. The squad gathered around as Gabriel was medevaced onto a recovery sled. The blast crater still glowed red behind them, steam pouring into the atmosphere. Zalek stared at the remains of the armor. That suit. It took a full carrier core at point blank. How is that possible? Voss didn't answer. She just looked at the small Terran figure on the sled. And then, very softly, they built it to outlive hell. A new alert chirped. Long-range scanners detecting second wave of Dominion forces incoming. Reinforcements, 5 aerial destroyers, 2 mechs, infantry battalions en route. 10 minutes. The squad fell silent. They had no armor left. No support. No time. And their human shield was unconscious, dying, barely holding on. Thal looked at Voss. What now, Captain? Voss drew a long breath. Then picked up Gabriel's scorched mass driver and locked a fresh clip into it. Now. She turned toward the horizon, where the enemy dust clouds began to rise. Now we show them what kind of monsters humans really are when you break the rules. The sky turned black with descending fire. And as the storm gathered, the sky burned black as the Dominion fleet descended, casting long, monstrous shadows over the blood-stained ice. 5 aerial destroyers screamed overhead, vapor trailing through the frozen clouds like gods of war. Behind them, ground transports touched down in formation. Massive beasts of war, their engines shrieking, ice shattering beneath them. Legions of Volix infantry poured out. Glowing armor, spike rifles, war cries that split the air like knives. Strike Unit Carinth, what was left of it, stood on the edge of the broken ridge, battered and barely standing. And they were out of time. Zalek checked the ammo count on his rifle. 4 rounds. His extra cell had frozen. They're coming in waves. Dozens of squads. Tactical mechs behind them. If we stay here, we die. No, Voss said, adjusting the grip on Gabriel's scorched mass driver. If we stay here, they die. Thal, the medic, looked up from the makeshift stretcher. Gabriel was still unconscious, barely breathing, suit systems shot, internal organs failing. His chest rose in shudders, his face pale as frostbite. I can't stabilize him, Thal muttered. Whatever kept him alive through that last blast, it's gone now. Voss nodded slowly. Then we hold until we can get him evac. No matter what it takes. The survivors dug in. They had exactly 4 defensive drones left, each with limited power. 1 railgun turret half-fused into the ice. No artillery. No orbital support. And a single battered human who had already given everything. Zalek set his teeth and helped lay charges along the slope. You think we can stop an army with broken rifles and snowballs? He asked bitterly. Voss didn't even blink. We have the example. He looked at her sideways. You mean Ruiz? She nodded once. They saw his armor and laughed. Then they saw what it took to break him. And we're still standing. Zalek shook his head, placing the final charge. That's not tactics. That's suicide. It's what they'll never understand, she said softly. We're not fighting to win. He froze. Then what? We're fighting to make damn sure they remember. The first wave crested the ridge. It wasn't just Volix. The Dominion had brought their shock units, 6-legged siege beasts with pulse cannons mounted on carapace towers. Flommers. Grenadiers. Heavy shield walls designed to take city blocks. All for a handful of battered soldiers and 1 broken human. Contact! Zalek screamed, firing the first shot. A drone burst beside him, launching a scatter pulse that threw a squad of Volix into the air. The slope erupted into chaos. Snow turned black. Fire tore through the trenches. The air stank of melted flesh and burning circuits. Voss moved like death incarnate, wielding the mass driver like a hammer, dropping enemies one by one with deafening cracks. Her armor was nearly useless, and she bled from a dozen shallow cuts, but she didn't stop. She couldn't. Not after what she'd seen. Every time she hesitated, she remembered the silhouette of Ruiz walking through the storm with a carrier commander impaled on rebar. Remembered how he stood alone between them and annihilation. And then she moved faster. Zalek was screaming in his native tongue, dual belading with broken rifles, too close to shoot, too desperate to care. A shock beast surged forward, cannon charging, and was blown to pieces as the railgun finally fired, its last slug finding the creature's core. But the line wouldn't hold. Too many. They were being pushed back, inch by inch. Voss fell behind a barricade, chest heaving, blood soaking through her neck seal. "We can't hold," Zalek panted beside her. "Captain, we're finished." "No," she rasped. "We hold until he wakes up." And then, as if summoned by the words, the world shook. A seismic shock rippled beneath them, like the mountain itself had drawn breath. The Dominion soldiers stopped, looked up, and then, the comms came alive. Just 2 words. Glitched. Warped. But unmistakably human. Round 2. From behind the ridge, something rose. Charred plating. Cracked helmet. Only one working arm. But moving. Alive. Gabriel Ruiz stood at the edge of the blast crater, dragging behind him a broken Volix plasma lance. His armor hissed steam from 100 cracks. There was no energy left in his HUD. His helmet visor was gone, revealing one eye swollen shut, the other burning with raw fury. He didn't walk. He limped, dragged one boot behind the other. But the Dominion stopped moving, because they recognized him now. He wasn't just a threat anymore. He was a myth. Gabriel raised the plasma lance and stabbed it into the ice beside him. A crude standard. A marker. Then he looked at the incoming army and did something no one expected. He tore off his helmet. And screamed. A primal human roar of fury and challenge, echoing off the cliffs with such force that even the nearest siege beast flinched. "Come on, you bastards," he shouted. "You want the coffin. Come and get it." He picked up a mangled autocannon from a fallen Volix trooper, checked the chamber manually, and opened fire. The noise was obscene. No aim. No finesse. Just unrelenting force. The Dominion surged forward. And the squad surged back. Voss vaulted over the barricade and slammed into the flank with wild abandon, yelling in a mix of curses and orders. Zalek fired both remaining rounds, grabbed a Dominion blade from the ground, and followed her in. And suddenly, it wasn't a retreat. It was a charge. The enemy lines buckled under the fury. The first destroyer was forced to fire its cannons into its own troops, unable to distinguish the chaos from safety. The second deployed its flamer drones, but a tossed Volix grenade took them out mid-air. Gabriel was everywhere. One-armed, half dead, on fire in one spot, but moving, fighting, refusing to die. He ripped a shock trooper's throat open with the edge of a melted plate, used the corpse as a shield to block incoming fire, then plunged the autocannon into the core of a Dominion mech and detonated the fuel cell manually. The explosion knocked him back a full 30 feet. He didn't get up right away. He just laughed. Blood streaming down his chin, teeth red, eyes manic. And still, they came. Another wave. A fresh destroyer. A barrage of artillery from the cliffs. Too much. Even Gabriel couldn't stop them all. Even he had a limit. And then, he stopped moving. Voss saw it happen in real time. One shot, just one, pierced the side of his torso. He dropped to one knee. Zalek screamed. Voss charged forward to cover him, unloading the last of her rounds. But they wouldn't reach him in time. Dominion troops surrounded him, raised their weapons. Gabriel Ruiz looked up, still grinning, and said something none of them understood. Then, blackout. The world exploded in static. Voss was thrown backward. The ground cracked. Every comm went dead. When her vision cleared, there was no Gabriel. Just a crater. And glass. The ice where he'd stood had melted. Fused. Everything in a 20-meter radius had turned to obsidian. And every Dominion soldier within it was gone. Vaporized. There was only the twisted remains of his armor, and his last breath still echoing in the silence. But not even the Union knew what had happened. Not then. All they knew was that he took the final stand. Alone. Again. But before they could grieve, Thol's cracked comm pinged once. Then again. Then a steady beeping. Voss frowned. Signal. Thol blinked. Not just signal. Broadcast. He patched it through. And then everyone went still. Because the Dominion fleet was retreating. All of it. Within 60 seconds, the destroyers reversed course. The dropships lit up. The shock beasts turned and began falling back. No orders were given. No communications shared. They just ran. Voss stared in disbelief. What's happening? Zalek's jaw trembled. They're not regrouping. They're fleeing. And from the comm, a final message, automated, ancient, encrypted in a dozen Dominion dialects, crackled through. A warning. Red mark acquired. Human entity hashtag XR177. Armor class, Coffin Walker. Designation. Tactical extinction event. Engage on site. Only with planetary authorization. Status. Uncontainable. The squad looked around. At the bodies. The glassed ice. The empty sky. Then, from the edge of the crater, a metal hand twitched. The metal hand moved again, slower this time, trembling, scraping across fused obsidian. Sparks sputtered from the cracked joint as snow blew into the crater, hissing against the heat. Then, like a machine reviving after 1,000-year sleep, the arm twitched, clenched, and dug into the glassed earth. A grunt followed. Raw. Human. Alive. Gabriel Ruiz crawled free of the crater. The last shreds of his armor hung in melted ribbons. The external plating was gone, his cooling unit vented, and the exposed mesh underneath sparked with dying power. His skin was blistered, soaked in blood and plasma residue, and his breathing came in shallow gasps. One of his lungs had likely collapsed. The other sounded like a broken bellows. But he was moving. Still moving. Because stopping wasn't an option. A shadow fell across him. Boots crunched on the glass. Then Voss knelt beside him, eyes wide, hands trembling. How the hell are you still alive? Gabriel tried to speak, coughed hard, then chuckled hoarsely. Armor's not pretty. Not fast. But it's stubborn as hell. He collapsed back onto the scorched earth, his chest heaving. Zalek slid into view behind her. The Dominions gone. They fled. The entire wave. Gabriel's burned lips curled into a smirk. Took him long enough. Thol sprinted in behind them, holding a medkit that looked pitifully small for the job ahead. He dropped beside Gabriel and began working in frantic silence. Voss stood, staring at the horizon. No more destroyers. No more mechs. No more shock troops. Just empty sky and falling snow. It was over. But the galaxy had changed. Forever. Within 6 hours, the full recording of the battle on Zeta Varn had made its way to the Galactic Tribunal's war councils. The footage, grainy, chaotic, but unmistakable, showed a lone Terran in an outdated battered combat suit holding off an army and walking through a fusion core blast like it was a campfire. The tribunal reacted as expected. Disbelief. Then panic. 6 major species declared emergency military reviews. 3 revoked their treaties with the Dominion out of fear of retaliation by Terran retaliation contingents. 1 race, the cautious and calculating Helvans, banned human armor exports entirely. And the Dominion? They sealed the incident in a black archive and issued a quiet command to their warcasters. If the humans come again, we burn the planet. Not the battlefield. Humanity didn't issue a statement. They didn't have to. The legend had already begun to spread. At Union outposts, soldiers whispered of a name. Coffin Walker. The one who wore death as armor. Who stared down annihilation and told it to wait its turn. A myth, a warning, a ghost in the smoke. Back aboard the medevac cruiser Verdict of Dawn, Gabriel Ruiz lay unconscious in a cryostabilization tank, wrapped in nanogel, while every medical expert in 3 sectors debated how he wasn't already dead. He wasn't healing. But he wasn't dying either. His cells are behaving, erratically, one alien doctor murmured. Like they refuse to give up. They're human, Thor replied simply, standing nearby with arms folded. That's what they do. Voss sat in silence at the viewport, staring at the stars. She had already filed her mission report. She left out nothing. Not the armor. Not the laughter. Not the crater. Not the moment the sky turned to glass and everything they believed about human limits shattered. But she ended her report with a single sentence. He did not wear the armor to fight. He wore it to make sure no one else had to. The tribunal requested an audience with her days later. They wanted to offer medals, honors, promotions. She declined them all. She sent one thing back, a schematic sketch of the ruined suit, with handwritten annotations scrawled beside it. A note. You didn't understand what you were looking at. It wasn't armor. It was a promise. And then she vanished from public service. No one ever found her again. Some say she returned to Earth. Others claim she built a vault beneath the mountains of Zeta Varn, where the remnants of the armor still pulse faintly in a room of ice and fire, waiting for the next one mad enough to wear it. Gabriel remained silent through it all. His body recovered slowly. Too slowly. Months passed. Then a year. Then came a knock. One evening, deep in the red glow of Earth's polar research station, where Gabriel had been relocated for protection, a pair of strangers arrived. Both human. Both quiet. One carried a case. He set it down gently and opened it. Inside was new armor. Not chrome. Not sleek. Dark. Heavy. Functional. Like a tank had been cut into the shape of a man. Gabriel looked at it for a long time. Then glanced up at them. You're recruiting? The stranger smiled. Not exactly. We're here to give you back what's yours. Gabriel stared at the suit. He saw the scars. The reinforcements. The adjustments made based on the reports from Zeta Varn. All forged from what was left of his original armor. And something more. Then he nodded. But before he could touch it, one of the strangers spoke. You should know. The Dominion has started building new weapons. Weapons meant for you. Gabriel exhaled slowly. Good, he said, reaching into the case. Let them try again. The armor hissed as it sealed around him. One plate at a time. It didn't gleam. It didn't glow. It just fit. Like it had been waiting for him. When the visor clicked into place, the HUD blinked online. A familiar voice whispered through the system. Coffin protocol engaged. Stand by for extinction class override. Gabriel Ruiz stepped into the frost-lined corridor, boots thudding with the weight of inevitability. Someone asked, You're really going back out there? He didn't stop walking. Didn't turn. He just spoke 3 words. And made the galaxy flinch again. The laughing stops now.